In this video, I'm going to reveal something that's going to completely change how you understand workplace burnout, both what it is and what you need to do to recover from it. And more specifically, I'm going to be sharing 5 patterns, behavioral patterns and mindsets, or combinations of those two, that really are going to keep you stuck and burnt out and really prevent you from creating that, vibrant life and successful career in life that I know that you want. And these patterns, these are things that I have seen in myself in the past and also among the women that I support as a holistic burnout recovery coach for high achieving, career driven women. So before I get into it, if that's you, if you are a high achieving woman, if you're trying to prevent or recover from burnout, then go ahead and hit the subscribe button. I share lots of content on this channel all about helping you figure out the things that you need to be doing to stay healthy, to stay sane, and to reach that next level of success in your career and your life. But without further ado, let's get into it. These 5 patterns that are really going to help you see burnout in a different light and help you to see what might be contributing to it. Now, a little disclaimer beforehand. Some of the things that most women I have found believe are contributing to their burnout may be actual contributors, but are probably playing less of a role than you think. And the things that I'm thinking about are like your job. Oftentimes, yes, obviously, for all of us, if we're feeling burnt out, our job feels like a source of stress, but often it's not like the root cause of all of our stress. And I'll get into why that's not the case in a minute. Another thing that tends to be really common among really smart, successful women is thinking that they're not working hard enough. They need to hustle harder, or they just don't have the right, time management skills. And I want to assure you that those things are, in, I would say, 99% of cases, that is not what is keeping you burnt out or what you got you burnt out in the first place. So I'm going to give you those 5 patterns. So let's get into it. One is, this is a big one, ignoring small health issues, especially newer ones, things that are just kind of like popping up all of a sudden, and treating them as if they're normal. Now, the types of health issues that I'm talking about here are like headaches, tension headaches that maybe you used to only get once in a while, but now they're popping up more and more, and they're becoming more and more of a nuisance for you. And even maybe more than a nuisance, actually painful and really disrupting your life. And a couple other things, digestion problems. I have seen this in so many women. We think that our digestion problems are either insignificant or a result of or just normal, like everybody else is dealing with the same things, or we kind of trick ourselves into believing that, or we think they're the cause of something that we're eating, which totally might be the case. But a lot of times digestion, it's a result, it's a sign that your body is burning out and that you've been under too much stress. A couple other small issues that tend to be really common among women that are burning out are needing prescription sleep aids, not being able to sleep, or waking up every night in the middle of the night, and sometimes even becoming dependent on prescription sleep aids to be able to get a good night's sleep. A couple other big ones, weight gain that feels like it's kind of like all of a sudden, and extreme fatigue. This is probably the number one, I hesitate to call it a small health issue, but relatively kind of small health issue, an issue that some of us might not even be seeing as a health issue, but it really is. We're talking about our physical health here, and it's something that many women tend to ignore or treat as normal, or something that we should just kind of put up with, instead of pausing and taking a look at what is actually going on in your life that might be contributing to these things. And that thing that might be contributing to all of these health issues is stress. How you're handling stress. Um, and side note, if you would like to get a closer understanding of, you know, if the symptoms that you're feeling or that you're experiencing right now really are burnout or if it's something else, I actually have a free self assessment tool, and I'm going to put a link to grab it right in the description below this video. It's called the Burnout Freedom Roadmap. So definitely go ahead and grab that because it's a really useful tool. Personally, I feel that the first step to solving any problem, burnout included, is awareness and really understanding, what the problem is. And that is one big thing that you're going to get out of that tool is a whole new level of awareness. So, number 2, this is a huge one. Number 2, saying yes to things that give you the ick factor and making up stories or rationalizations in your mind about why you actually need to say yes to those things. Obviously, this is about boundaries here. And there's a lot of reasons why, we might be saying yes to things. Some of us are, have a problem or a pattern of perfectionism. That is a big thing. I definitely can say that I have struggled with perfectionism for most of my life. People pleasing, that is another reason why we might be saying yes to things or to people that, if we're really being honest with ourselves, we don't want to be saying yes to. And some of us also have sort of a need to constantly feel like we're doing something, like we're being productive. And so we end up saying yes to things that we really don't want to be doing, but for whatever reason, it's just too hard for us to say no. And then we make up, regardless of if it's perfectionism or people pleasing or this, compulsion to always be doing, we make up stories, reasons, in our mind for why we have to continue saying yes, why this has to be the case. And in the process, we're ignoring the signals that our body is naturally sending us, telling us that no, it's not okay. We're actually, hey, guess what? Guess what, Jen? That's me, by the way. We're not actually happy with this thing. And when I'm talking about signals from your body, like a really obvious signal that most of us receive when we are kind of not wanting to say yes to something or not want to do something is that kind of feeling in your stomach of yuck. That might be the feeling that you're getting. You might get a feeling of like your throat closing up. You might get a sudden, really sudden headache, stress headache, tension headache. You might start to feel even like a little lightheaded, a little dizzy. You might feel short of breath. I could go on. There's a lot of signals. It's really crazy. There's so many signals that our body sends us when we are saying yes to things that we really want to be saying no to. When or in other words, our body is always kind of telling us what our yeses and our nos are. And my advice to you in this moment would be, instead of continuing to say yes to all these things that are giving you the ick feeling, that are, that your body is saying no to, what if instead you started reconnecting with your body, really listening to what it's saying and following its lead? When you get that ick feeling, what if instead of automatically saying yes, almost kind of like reflexively, what if you said, let me tell you tomorrow? And then gave yourself time to consider, if you want to say no and how you can go about saying no, right? We're talking about boundaries. If I had to sum this pattern up into one word, 2 words, 3 words, lack of boundaries. This is a pattern that is going to keep you burnt out for so long. It's really going to prevent you from moving forward. No matter if you change your job, if you change the city you live in, if you change the relationship that you're in, if you have not mastered how to set healthy boundaries, how to really listen to the intelligence of your body and follow its lead, you are going to be forever burnt out or cycling in and out of burnout for your life. So, number 3, third pattern that's really going to keep you stuck and burnt out is expecting things to get easier on their own without you doing anything. This isn't quite a pattern per se, but more like a mindset that many of us have, many of us have, that really keeps us from moving forward. And honestly, it's also part of this mindset is that we're always kind of like looking to what's going on in the context of our lives and just waiting and hoping that things are going to change. Like some things that have come up in conversations with some of my clients before is, they're putting off setting boundaries because they think that they're looking ahead at what their boss or what their company is saying is going to change in the next 6 months, and they're thinking, all right, once that gets fixed, then everything will be okay. I hear this even from my clients. Something kind of like bleeding into my next pattern, but I'll talk about it right now, is thinking that things are just going to slow down, convincing ourselves that things are just going to kind of slow down next month or next quarter, and then we'll be able to, and then things will be better for us. Then we won't be so exhausted. Then we won't be, going through all these sleepless nights because things will have resolved. You will have gotten the new support staff person that you needed at work that you don't have right now. That, we're waiting for things outside to change instead of focusing on what we can control inside. In fact, in this life, there are so few things that we can control over, but the things that we can control are actually really powerful. And those things are your actions, your boundaries, like we already talked about, your habits, your routines, and your overall perspective or mindset. Those are all things that you can control, that you have so much more control over compared to what's happening at work, what decisions upper management is making, what's happening in the government, what's happening in the economy, what's going on with your parents or your in-laws. There's so many things. We can't control other people. We can't control all these big forces, but we can control what's inside. So instead of expecting things to get easier on their own, for your burnout to just resolve itself, instead of continuing to just kind of kick the can down the road, instead focus on what you can control. Number 4, and this is kind of related, putting off focusing on you for even one day. I hear this a lot. I'll be able to focus on me next week, or I'll be able to focus on me next quarter, or I'll be able to, focus on me when I change my job or whatever. This is very related to the thing before that I mentioned about expecting things to get easier, without you doing anything. But it's slightly different in the sense that, you might be at a point where that you need to focus on you. You know that you are at a point where you need to start taking control of your life, of your health, in a more active way than you might be doing right now. You know that you need to set boundaries. You know that you need to start focusing on, paying attention to how you're treating your body, maybe like what you're eating, what you're doing to help yourself get to sleep at night. You know that you have these things that you need to be focusing on. It's just the question of, how do you focus on you? How do you find the time, the moment? What is the right moment? Thinking that you need to wait to focus on you is always going to hold you back because it doesn't get easier tomorrow. It actually gets harder. The longer that you put off focusing on you, the harder it gets to focus on you. No one is going to make this time for you. I am really sorry to be the bearer of bad news here, but no one's going to do it. You are literally the only person who has the power to slow down, to set those initial boundaries, even if it just means carving out 5 minutes a day in your morning to focus on you. You're the only one that has the ability to change things, to put the focus on you. And I also think, I will say that one other thing that kind of related to this, I think that there is this assumption in many of our minds that focusing on me requires that the world stop. That, I take a break from work, or that I cut my hours in half, or that I take a vacation, or whatever, that like things need to stop in order for me to focus on me. It doesn't need to be like that. Focusing on you, it just needs to happen. And in fact, I would argue that in terms of learning how to focus on you, learning how to make even just a little bit of time for yourself, learning how to set boundaries, whether it's at work or at home, learning how to delegate, all this stuff, you can't do it if you are on vacation. You can't do it on a retreat. On a vacation or a retreat, you can think about it. You can focus 100% on yourself during those times, but you can't practice setting boundaries because there's really no boundaries to set. You're not living in, quote, real life when you're on a vacation or on the weekend, or you're on a wellness retreat or whatever. I feel like I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but hopefully the point is kind of sinking in for you that, like, when it comes to focusing on yourself, it doesn't have to be this big production. You just have to decide, and you just have to move forward. You just have to decide. I mean, if you were trying to recover from burnout on your own, I would say choose one small thing that you're going to do and commit to it every single day, and make it really small and easy to do. That in itself, that is focusing on you. And once you get that one thing done, add on another thing. Last pattern that is going to really keep you burnt out and keep you from moving forward with your life, and for many of you, even with your career, is refusing to accept support, or thinking or feeling like you have to do everything on your own. I see this all of the time, obviously. And totally natural because, as a, high achieving woman by myself, especially, if you have gotten to a particular level in your career, you probably feel like you've done that. You've put in a lot of hard work. You've done a lot on your own. You're really independent. You don't want to have to ask for support or ask for help to figure out how to get a decent night's sleep, or to figure out how to feel less exhausted, or to figure out how to get your mojo, your motivation, your drive, whatever you want to call it, back. There's so many reasons, and I could talk about this forever, obviously. There's so many reasons why we are kind of averse to asking for help, especially those of us who have been really career driven. But I can tell you without a doubt that if you have support, if you have some structure for how you're going to do it, if you have someone helping you stay accountable to yourself, whether it's a friend group or a therapist or someone like me, a coach, or all three, and other kinds of forms of support that I'm probably not even thinking about right now, you are going to move forward and feel better so much faster, so much faster. I did not get to where I am without support, and I continue working with a coach in my life. I don't believe that we are meant to do things alone. I mean, we're social beings. We are meant to, it's normal to need support. And I would also challenge you to think about, even like thinking about in your career, think about all the times when you have asked for support, um, even if in small ways. The best of us have not gotten to where we are at without even though we might self-identify as fiercely independent, most of the time we get support, and we're always looking out for who would be the best to help us with something. Why is it any different with your life and your well-being, right? You deserve that. So I really hope that this video was helpful for you in giving you some insight into what are the patterns that you might be repeating in your life that are keeping you stuck and burnt out and preventing you from getting to that next level of success, not just in your career, but in your health and in your relationships and in your life, and creating the vision of life that you really want for yourself. And if it was helpful, then please hit like, hit the subscribe button. And again, don't forget to grab that free resource. I've linked to it in the the video description, the Burnout Freedom Roadmap. It's going to give you a self-assessment tool for figuring out how burnt out are you really? Are you burnt out, or is it just a little bit of stress or even something more serious? And it'll also give you an idea of what should your first steps be to getting out of burnout. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.